Welcome back to the channel. It's Ninja Chortle here, and I'm back with a couple more videos to go of new customs before I start taking a quick break, or maybe the break isn't quick, but we'll get to that later. Today we're going to talk about a brand new Jean Grey figure. It is the new X-Men Jean Grey. There's various ways I could have gone about this, but I went with this particular look because she does have a look with the jacket on. There's different colors you can play with as well, but I went with this one for a specific reason, which we will get into later on in the video. So but yeah, this is meant to be new X-Men Jean Grey. This is the first figure, actually no, it's the second one. I forgot about my new X-Men Emma Frost, which I should have grabbed and I did not. I'm sorry. It's sitting back on my shelf, and I'm definitely not going to go grab it right now. But anyway, we're going to talk about this figure and how it came to be, and what parts and stuff it make up this figure, and so on. This overall is a small change to my formula for Jean Grey. So it is a slightly different build than my previous Jean Grey figure, which was like the Hellfire Gala. And I think, did I make any other Jean Greys? Yes, duh, they're right there. So yeah, we'll talk about that as we get to it. So first things first, it is the same head. I'm still using the same head that I've used on other Jean Greys. So this is still the Age of Apocalypse head for this Jean Grey. This is, for the most part, my de facto Jean Grey head because it's so accessible, because nobody bought this figure. And it's very cheap, and I use this for bodysuit legs, and I use it for Jean Grey heads. So I have plenty of these Jean Grey heads for plenty more customs of Jean. So there we go. But let's go ahead and go down to the bottom. These are slightly modified custom-ish wedges. They're not heels. They're actually wedges. So what they are comprised of, one, I didn't make resin copies, so these aren't you can't get this off a figure directly. These are resin copies of the boots that come off the Gwen Stacy figure. It's the Gwen Stacy Mary Jane figure. So those are like boots or heels or whatever. So I took those, I made resin copies of those, and then in the heel part area I added a epoxy sculpt, so that way it's not an open part, it's just closing off the bottom of the foot. So now it's more like a wedge shape than it is an actual boot or heel. But again, these are resin copies first, and you can kind of see maybe a little bit of the, yeah, there you go. Me adding epoxy sculpt there at the bottom as well on the sides. The sides are a little bit more smoothed out and cleaner because obviously when she's standing up, you're not going to see the bottom. So who cares how messy it looks down there? So that's the idea. That's it. So one of the new changes that I've made to this formula for Jean, I used to use your standard Kate Bishop calf lower leg. These are now the swivel ones. These are directly coming off of an X23 with the goth boots, those sort of things, and I had to Dremel all of that off to smooth it out so that they look just like regular legs. And obviously that's the hard way of doing things, just to get regular looking legs. You can just use like any other figure that has the swivel legs without all of the details of the boots. But again, we got to make the best of what I have available and try to keep the costs down. So I have tons of these goth boots, and I don't have tons of customs to give goth boots to, so we got to do stuff like this, which you don't even have to go that step if at all. Like I said, you can use whatever legs you feel like if you're going to make your own. But you can see I also I painted all of it black after dremeling it, sanding it down, and then also with the gold on the front. I was going to sculpt the X on there, but last minute decision, I kind of just decided to paint it on. And then also I did a poor job of painting it on. This isn't exactly how it's supposed to look. I just kind of rushed it, I guess. And then if I had a better reference picture or just was a little bit more patient with myself, I would have painted on more accurately. It's not terrible, but it doesn't look like that. So admittedly, that's probably the worst part of this figure that I did was down here on this X. Going up a little more, thighs, these are the same thighs and so on that I always use. Moira McTaggart or the House of X, Jean Grey with green, you know, just a little bit longer of the thigh, less muscular. That works on here, and then just repainted in black. Very simple. The lower torso is a Spider Woman, so I didn't want to use like a regular Kate Bishop. Let me see, do I have one here? Yeah, sort of thing. I didn't want to use one of these, like just because it has, like, you know, all that booty, right? She's wearing pants, like it's not a bodysuit or a uniform or whatever. She's wearing pants. So this is more of again, this is the Spider Woman Jessica Drew figure, not the original one, but the newer one that she has like the jacket or whatever. So it's more like a bodysuit sort of look. So it doesn't have like the entire butt shape. Basically, it looks like she's wearing pants because she's wearing pants, and that's the idea. Also, the top of it is very cloth-like in fabric, so you can see some cloth ripples, like she's wearing a shirt or something, because, you know, she's not with her abs out. You know, it's not a naked painting, you know, like most figures are. So that's the look I was going for. This belt, so that torso on Spider-Woman, she does have like a belt like area going around. I did Dremel that down a little bit, but it's still like a very slightly lifted off of her body on that torso. And you can't really see it here, but I left it there, and then I took this belt piece from off I think it's X23, right? Because she has the belt, or is it Domino? I don't remember what figure it is. But yeah, one of those figures has the belt with this X symbol on there. I cut that off. Now, I could have used that belt specifically on here, but it was a little bit small because it's made for a smaller figure. So when I put it on there, it just sits up a little higher than I wanted it to be. So instead of just leaving the belt as a loose flowing belt, I cut this front piece off and glued it on to her torso. And then all of these things going around her torso for the belt, those are just sculpted on with epoxy sculpt, and then use a Dremel and sandpaper just to flatten them out a little bit. And so that's her belt, and then painted everything around it. So the actual belt itself I didn't sculpt, but like the actual resin pieces are sculpted on, and then this front belt buckle is from that X23 figure, like I said. Now, as far as the rest of her body, the upper torso, lower torso of the shirt, and so on. So like I said, the lower torso is from the Spider Woman, and so is the upper torso. You know, the spider it does have like a spider pattern on there that is sculpted into the actual upper torso. I took a Dremel and lightly dremeled the top, the upper torso, so I can get all that detail off. It's not perfect. I don't think you can see it from a distance. Like if you were to examine like super close, maybe you can spot some of the blemishes still there, some of the sculpted lines, but you'd have to have a really good focus on a camera and look really closely. But it's there, but you cannot see it very well because I did Dremel some of that off. Speaking of things I didn't sculpt as well, I didn't sculpt the X symbol on there. I painted that on there, one, because it's actually kind of hard to sculpt. I didn't want to like leave the entire circle there and then just sculpt and paint on top of that. I wanted to have originally like actually sculpt out the insides, so those little gray spots for inside the X would have been non-sculpted. That's how I wanted it, but it's really difficult to do that. So I ended up just saying, you know what, I'll just paint it and it's fine that way. But I wouldn't mind it being sculpted. The arms are bodysuit arms from Deadly Origins Black Widow, so they just look like sleeves. And then hands are standard hands from any old figure that has open hands painted with fingernail polish. I could have gone with the jacket version of this figure. If I wanted to give it jacket arms and go with a longer jacket, I decided not to do that. One, because I prefer it without the jacket, not gonna lie. Two, because I was really trying to recreate a certain scene within the new X-Men books. Is basically when Jean Grey walked in on Cyclops and Emma Frost, psychically connecting, right? They didn't actually physically do anything, but he was cheating on Jean with Emma mentally, and Jean walked in on that. So when Jean walked in, Emma was imitating and dressed up as the Dark Phoenix, because she was trying to be naughty and Emma was trying to be naughty and appeal to Cyclops. Like, oh, you like when Jean's naughty, like when she's the evil one, like she's Dark Phoenix. Like, so she dressed herself up as Dark Phoenix and mentally, and then that's when Jean walked in. So I wanted to recreate that scene, even though it's like 2 panels and 2 issues of comic books. That's okay. So she was wearing this outfit without the jacket, so that's one of the reasons why. Although the colors can vary still, for what it's worth, I prefer her with the gold down here and the gold belt instead of like the silverish color. Now, I said all that. I wanted to recreate that scene. Of course, I need to do so with Emma Frost as Dark Phoenix. So I'm not going to go too much into this one. It's not much to go into anyway. I do have an Emma Frost as Dark Phoenix, so I can make that scene if I really wanted to. I will explain a little bit of this figure, because again, it's not a whole lot, but I will do that in a separate video. But I do have them to go together, just to mention that now. Now, back to Jean. Lastly is her hair. Like I said, her head is the same Age of Apocalypse, but her hair is specifically from the Eternals Athena figure. So it fits pretty much perfectly. I didn't have to do any extra shaping or sizing down or sizing up of her head to make it fit with this hair. It went in there very well. It looks great. It's not a perfect hairstyling to what her hair was in those issues, but it's not far, so it just really works. It's a good length, it's a really good style, and again, I painted it with Angelus acrylic leather paint. This is the scarlet red color, and yeah, her face is basic skin tone from Vallejo paint with red lipstick, and all of her face, her eyes and stuff, I painted that myself. So yeah, that is it for Jean here, and let's go ahead and do a quick Jean Grey comparison, and we're done with this video. Alright, so for a quick Jean Grey comparison, we have our Age of Apocalypse Jean Grey here on my right, new X-Men Jean Grey, newly finished custom, and the X-Men Red Jean Grey, which is technically a full new custom. Although I did make this previously, this is a completely different one. So this is a new body and everything. I will cover this on a future video, but it's here for comparison, just to throw it out there. But I will talk about it in another video, not this one, because I've already made a video on this costume. I don't want to give another full explainer right now. But I also have here is our, oh, see, it just messed everything up. We have our Jean Grey Black Queen from the Hellfire Club pack. As you can see, her legs are very, like, I mean, hopefully you can tell how terrible this is gone. These are the original legs from that Hellfire Club set, and I can't stand her up whatsoever on her own. In fact, she's been on my shelf leaning against the wall, just standing up, and just slowly been doing one of those. So I'm going to remake this again. So it was a mod before, now it's going to be a full-on redo, although I'm still going to use parts from it. I'm going to use the upper torso and arms and head, but she'll just have new legs. And the idea is that she'll end up being built like this, as well as the other Jean Greys. Going forward, we'll have this build, like as I explained, which does reason why I have this here is that I'm also going to be remaking this Age of Apocalypse Jean. So pretty much going to be remaking all Jeans in general, but I will be tackling Age of Apocalypse Jean again, or for the first time, but making her look more like this and still using the same head and upper torso most likely, and just changing everything else about it so that it's lined up with this figure. And then this one, again, I'll explain that in a separate figure or a separate video that'll be coming out very soon, so stay tuned for that. I can't wait to work on more Jean Greys. Again, pretty much going to be making all of them over again, and making new costumes as well, Phoenix, Dark Phoenix, and so on, so that way they look more in line to how I made this figure. Stay tuned for that. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, like this video if you enjoy new X-Men Jean Grey, and make sure you come back so you can see more of X-Men Red Jean Grey as I talk about it quickly in another video. That Emma Frost that I flashed earlier, I will talk about that in another video very soon, among other customs, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.